Hey, gun people! Notice the little pretty yellow flowers I painted all over my yard. They're growing. I painted them down the driveway and painted them. Listen to me. Planted them. It's early in the morning. Hey, I want to talk about the 3-5. Or the, I'm not, shit, was it 3? 5, 7? 7-5 maybe. Yeah, 7-5, the 75th. There's a show on Netflix called the Severn Five, and it's for the 76 or 75th precinct in New York. Man, that was a pretty. I better have some coffee here. So pretty good show. If you haven't watched it, there's some good down to earth raw truths that people don't want to admit about police work. And so, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it and you want to go watch it and you're afraid I'm going to ruin the plot, I mean, it's a true story, so there's not really a fake plot, but if you want to know what happens, or you're one of those people that I don't want to have it ruined, don't watch this. Go watch the thing, and then you can come back and watch it if you want to. So I'm going to talk about the show and things in the show that's going to give away some things that you may not want to do. To me, it's not a big deal. I wouldn't care if somebody told me about it or not. I'd watch it because it had some good information in it. It's kind of like giving away the plot to Ruby Ridge. Pretty much everybody knows what's going to happen. So, all right. So in the 75th, it basically tells a story of these two cops that were pretty dirty, and New York busted a few cops in this one precinct, and they worked in the 75th, which was known as the roughest and dirtiest, toughest precinct, and they get busted after that. And it's a pretty big black eye for the New York Police Department. Now you got to remember, New York has like 50,000 cops. Hell, they probably got 100,000 now. I don't know. They have a huge police force. Big government, a lot of taxes, a lot of people, small areas, cops running over cops, investigations running over investigations. Nobody knows anybody. I mean, hell, I work in places where there was, 200 or 300 people out at night on the road, and you didn't know everybody that was working, and they didn't know you, and you'd run into cops, they'd be like, oh, I didn't know you were out here. So, I mean, when you and you get bigger and bigger, you're just not going to know everybody. So the badge speaks for kind of like instant credentials. If you're working in areas where you don't know all the cops, if somebody has a badge, you just have to assume and kind of bless them as they're a good guy. I don't have to worry about this guy. I don't have to question him. I don't have to investigate him. I don't have to look to see if he's doing something dirty. He's just one of the good guys, because you just can't know everybody. And that's the problem with big government, is the bigger government gets, the more out of control it gets. So in this, I don't know if I'd call it a movie. I guess it's more of a documentary of the 75th. These two guys. I like most of the players. And the problem I have with the movie a little bit is you gotta pay attention when they start flashing names of people, because after they flash the names once or twice, they don't do it again. And when they're switching back and forth stories because they go in different times, you don't know it's the same guy because they look different, and they're talking about the dude and they're showing them in different clips, and you're like, oh shit, that's Mike and that's Kenny, and and so you got to pay attention to the names when they flash the names. I thought they could have made that a little bit clearer, but otherwise I thought it was a pretty good show that they kind of showed these guys talking real life after prison, after their conviction, after they've been through the process. And so there really wasn't a whole lot of reason for them to lie, other than to maybe make themselves look a little bit better than they did. They may lie in that, but because they interviewed all the different parties, it gave you can kind of critically think and evaluate, okay, that makes sense, this makes more sense, I kind of believe these two guys over this guy, or I believe these two over this guy. So, and they got this one crook dude. I like this dude. I forgot his name, man, because they went into a couple cartels. But he's got you'll know who I'm talking about if you watch the show, because he's just like, man, if somebody killed Kenny, I'd kill him. I'd hunt him down. But another cop, shit, I don't care. I like that dude. Okay, even though he was a crook and he was a badass, he had a thing about honor, and he knew who he was, and he was loyal to his friends, and he was out there making a living. And yeah, he probably killed a few people, and yeah, he put a lot of drugs on the streets, and everybody would be like, how can you like a guy like that? Look, I had respect for a lot of crooks that I chased because of their smarts and ability to outwit and outthink. Sounds like Survivor. And survive on the streets and avoid government. I like guys like that. Again, I like guys that are guys. I just don't like pussy freaking trying to be a fit, whatever the term is, to not be a guy. You know what? I like guys who are guys. I hung around guys in the military. They were type A, aggressive, macho. Cops, aggressive, macho. I mean, the court system, the government system, and you get attorneys, they're kind of pussies. They hide behind their suits and their things, but at least they're kind of, some of them are in your face, and they're trying to do the right thing, and even though the negative consequence there, they do it. So I don't want to give too many props to lawyers, because most of them are freaking weasels. But anyway, this show, man, I mean, it's really eye-opening, and for people that think the blue line of silence, cops protecting cops, doesn't exist, I mean, you're living in a fairyland. Now, I will admit, New York and these guys were out of control. Totally off the books, off the reservation. I've never, ever known any cop on the take, planting dope, etc. If I knew about it, I'd be trying to set their ass up and catch them. I didn't do that. I've never taken money, or I've never done anything like this, but I was an aggressive cop, and when I traced bad guys, I treated them like bad guys, and like a government boot thug, whatever you want to call it. So there's this fine line, though. I mean, I remember one incident where we did a raid on a house, and I mean, there was just so much. They were growing dope in all the rooms, and they had lights, and there was tools, and I mean, it was a master setup, and I ended up using a screwdriver through the night to kind of search things, or to get into things, or bust locks, whatever. And I used this, and I got in the car a couple times, and I ended up leaving that screwdriver in my car. And I found it like the next day, and I didn't book it in, and it was in my car, and I was like, shit, and I think it rolled around the floor. Anyway, a week or two went by, and when I found it again, it was like, shit, I still got this shit, and I don't want to go book it because it's really not evidence, and I don't know what to do with it. But I had a screwdriver that wasn't mine that I took from a scene, and it bothered me. And I went to my chief, who I didn't trust for shit anyway, but to cover my ass, I was like, yo, dude, I found a screwdriver in my car, and I used it on that raid that we were on the other night, and it belonged to the guy, and I don't know what to do with it. And he's like, don't worry about it. I was like, fuck that. I am going to worry about it. I drove back to that damn house that we searched. I went in the back, I took that screwdriver, and I threw it over the fence. So if anybody had ever said, oh, well, because when they come after you, they'll use anything. Well, there was this time that he stole a screwdriver on a search warrant, and he came and told me, and I didn't want to make a big deal about it, but you know what? I'd be able to say, no, I didn't steal shit. When I found out I did it, I notified him. He told me I'd do nothing. I went back to the house, I returned it, and I threw it over the fence. Now, all the people were arrested and in jail, and nobody was coming back to the house. I didn't care. That's where I got it from. I returned it. So, I mean, that's just how I was about covering my ass. I didn't want to get anything. If I found money sometime on a table that was sitting there, I'd call in my buddy and say, yo, man, it's $14 there. We both know it. Because there'd be a lot of cops running around, etc. So if money came up stolen, missing later, or there was some investigation, we knew how much money was on that counter when we both went in there, and I had a witness. So these cops were just, I mean, totally opposite. I mean, it was, but, man, these two cops were especially Mike. Mike was the dirty cop. And I kind of like Mike, okay? He's got some heart. He went in the wrong place. He was a crooked ass cop, and you know what? He got his. He got some money, and he made a lot of money. Now, would I have busted him? Yeah, I liked him, but I would have busted him. And but the cops all turned the other eye, and they looked the other way. And if you remember Serpico, was also in New York, and he tried to stand up against the corruption. He tried to say, I don't want to take the money. I don't want free stuff. And they blackballed him, and they scammed him, and they didn't give him backup, and they tried to kill him. And, I mean, a huge scandal. And they made it all about Serpico being a bad guy because he was trying to go against the system. And, I mean, when I was going against that DA, there were actually DAs and cops calling me Serpigore because I was turning in that dirty DA and I was a traitor. I went against, whatever. I don't, you know, look, New York, if you're in a big city and you get a jacket, and I told a story on one of my cop stories where I pulled a couple of cops off these guys who I thought they were beating the shit out of them and it was bullshit. And then my sergeant called me in and told me I was going to get a jacket and they couldn't trust me and I better be careful because I won't get cover and I won't get backup. I mean, that just shouldn't happen. I mean, that shouldn't even be on someone's radar that if I'm not part of your crew, other people aren't going to do their job and they're going to neglect and hang me out to dry to get hurt. But you know what? What should be and what is not always the same. So in this movie, these cops, man, when you look at them, the pressures that are on them, I mean, they were making, what were they making, $600 a week, I think? And the way they were talking about money and 70 grand here and 8 grand a week, and you know, guys ripped this one dude off, that one crook that I kind of like. I was like his attitude. He's a stand-up guy. I mean, me and him we can hang out. If he's out of prison, we can hang out, cause he's just like, he don't give a shit. And he's like, yeah, he goes, they came in, these guys robbed me and shit. And he goes, they got 700 grand. And he goes, I didn't care about the money, and they got my coke. He goes, I didn't care about that shit. I can get more of that. He goes, but man, they brought the cops down to my place because now they shot up, and the cops came, and they brought attention to me. And that's why. And they go, well, what happened to him? And you know, the dirty cops found him, pulled him over, and turned him over to this guy. And they go, well, what happened to him when they turned him over to you? And he smiled. He goes, hey, you know, they're not around no more. I don't know what happened. And I know some people are going to be relate and go, how can you laugh about that? They probably killed. Hey, man, rules of the road, rules of the jungle. You know, it's if you're going to play that game, then you got to take the consequences. So, you know, if you get killed because you're running dope and you're rip off dope dealers, you think it's easy target, then you know what? But I would recommend you guys watching that. It gets a little slow in some areas, so you got to kind of pay attention. You got to sit down. I think it's about an hour and a half, maybe an hour and 45 minutes. It shows all the way through when they were young cops, and they're interviewing them, and they're interviewing them after prison. And I mean, the prison sentences that were handed out, I was kind of like, you got to be shitting me. That one dude, Kenny, man, just because he turned on his buddy, he didn't do a day in jail. And he was just as dirty as this guy. And then he kind of tried to make himself look as a victim at the end, kind of like, yeah, you know, if I look back and, you know, the first time Mike gave me that $100 and I set it in my shelf and I didn't use it for, I wish I'd have just went to an outside agency and turned it in, because if I'd have went to IA, I'd have been labeled as a rat. And I agree with that. There's a lot of pressures on not doing the right thing. But that's part of being freaking a man and just doing the right thing. I mean, you got to stand up for what's right. And you know, it's not the book, and it's not, you know, this rule or that rule or this club or this group. It's about, hey, man, it's the right thing. I mean, I've been with friends sometime, and, you know, they done things, and I'm like, man, that ain't cool. I don't like that. And, you know, sometimes it strains the relationship. Other times it's like, all right, that's cool. You know, you move on. But I mean, people wanting to get in law enforcement thinking that, you know, I wouldn't do that. And I'm telling you, man, it's a tough road. There were guys that didn't trust me, not because I was dirty, but because they know if they asked me something, I'd be truthful. And there was a lack of trust between some cops around me. There were other cops that were like, dude, man, if I'm in trouble, I want you there, because I know shit's going to be done right. I know you're going to fucking stand up and do the right thing. So, you know, there's always this side. And you know what? Being right isn't always popular. And that show really showed a lot of the tough pressures of being a cop. Before you get on there and judge these cops as those dirty cops and all cops are that. Look, man, I've never known. I mean, like I said, I don't even know cops that ever stole even the money, took $5 or something. Because first of all, they wouldn't do it in front of me if they knew me. And even the ones that didn't know me would never do that. I mean, I just, you can tell if a cop's doing that. Now, there was a couple cops that had family that were in gangs, and they hung out with their family, and they were a cop, and you know, you were questionable sometimes about giving them information. I tell another crazy cop story where this DA started dating this cranker girl, and she's using crank, and he's hanging out with her, and he's partying with her, and he's getting that nice little young pussy, and oh, warning, he's gonna say the P word. So he's really tapping that cute little ass, and he's just living the life right now. I'm a DA, and I got this fine piece of ass, and man, she take care of me probably because she's doing crank, and that's all they want to do is have sex. So he's living a great life, and then when they find out he has to prove a warrant, and he tells them that we're doing a warrant, and now the cops go in, and they say, oh yeah, we knew you were coming because so-and-so, and then they find a girl's jacket there. I mean, was that DA like a dirty cop or dirty... I mean, that was some dirty shit. He put cops' lives at risk. Should he have done that? No. But to me, I wouldn't have took a damn warrant to him if I know he's screwing a cranker. I just wouldn't have done it. I'd have found another DA. I'd have said, look, I don't trust this guy. And then people were like, well, you should not trust him. Just that, you shouldn't say that. You're disparaging his words unless you have evidence that he's bad. You know what? Tough shit. I am who I am, and I'll just say it. I don't trust him if he's sleeping and hanging out with a cranker that he'd keep his mouth shut. Because I know the power of pussy. It's like freaking kryptonite to men. They lose their damn mind. They can't do anything right when it's around. So, me personally, I ain't telling him shit if he's sleeping with a cranker. So, but, you know, it is what it is. I mean, if he's the only guy, and I'm not saying the guy that took the warrant to him was stupid or bad. He just went into it closed-minded, and he was a buddy of mine. And, you know, I love him. He's a brother. We used to go snow skiing. We'd go shooting. I mean, he was a good dude. But you know what? When he told me he took that, I go, dude, why didn't you find... Oh, man, it's fun. You know, you can't even trust the DA. I got more things to worry about. He'd get all worked up, and I was like, yeah, well, fuck it. You know, it is what it is. So this show really shows, before you judge these guys, the constant pressures of government growth, saying the wrong thing to the wrong person at the wrong time can cost you promotions, assignments, good duty, bad duty, shift work, not shift work, time off, getting approved, not approved. There's all kind of pressures, and people are like, well, cops should be better and they take an oath. Yeah, okay, well, whatever. I mean, you can believe that, but the truth is there's a lot of pressures out there, and these guys fell for the wrong pressures of the money. They chased the buck. They got caught in the end, and it is what it is. But pretty good show. Before you judge those guys as being just all bad, I mean, I kind of saw some decency in everybody they talked to, except maybe the dude that they hit his face, and he had the dreadlocks, and and he was talking to where you couldn't see his face. I didn't find anything redeeming in him, but that other dude that made those guys disappear and wasn't worried about losing 700 grand, I liked him. All right, we'll end that there on the Severn Five, the 75th precinct in New York.